75 million nights lost, £2.2 billion evaporated from international revenue. Heathrow's growth rate is dismal at 0.7%, lagging behind Istanbul by 8 times. This is not the script of a disaster movie, but the harsh reality of British tourism in 2026. The disappearance of the VAT refund policy has turned the West End into an expensive museum gallery that ultra-wealthy customers actively avoid, opting instead to spend their money in Paris or Milan. More painfully, the British themselves are fleeing their homeland as domestic spending plummets by £3 billion. The hospitality industry is facing a perfect storm: soaring energy costs, exhausted workforce, and visitor levies like the final blow to hopes of recovery. Is the United Kingdom really self-destructing? Let's dissect the systemic collapse of an economy that was once the center of the world. Perhaps we have all been proud to think of London Heathrow as the heart of the world's aviation that never skips a beat. Looking at Picture of 2026, the figure of 84.48 million passengers is proudly announced in government reports. It sounds great, but in reality, that huge number only reflects half the truth. Why do I say that? Look at Istanbul. They are booming with a growth rate of 6% while Heathrow is crawling along with a mega 0.7%. Have you ever wondered why an airport operating at 98% runway capacity, meaning there's almost no room for a sparrow to land, has such an empty atmosphere inside the terminals? This situation is referred to by many economists as the aviation mummy phenomenon. The infrastructure is present, but the economic vitality within has been drained. At Terminal 5, once a sanctuary of luxury, designer stores now stand as mere glass cases. International travelers still come, but only as a temporary stop before connecting flights to Paris or Madrid. The position of the United Kingdom is being directly threatened by Paris, Charles de Gaulle and Madrid. Even Istanbul is ready to dethrone the busiest airport in Europe. We proclaim Global Britain with grand visions of autonomy, yet we confine ourselves within a bureaucratic fortress. New border regulations and rigid visa barriers have turned entry into an obstacle course. Airlines are not charitable organizations. When operating costs are sky high and efficiency is low, they shift routes elsewhere. A crowded airport with no spending is not prosperity. It is a crisis disguised by numbers. Why can an infrastructure operating at 98% capacity not generate prosperity? The real problem goes deeper, into tax policy that is strangling tourism. Now, let's move to the West End. The abolition of VAT-free shopping is not just a procedural change, it is a major strategic mistake of post-Brexit Britain. International visitor spending has fallen, leaving a multi-billion-pound gap and affecting thousands of jobs in hospitality. For example, a tourist buying a £2,000 handbag in Paris receives a refund, while in London they receive nothing. As a result, international customers have turned away and gone to EU countries. Major brands and stores have reported revenue declines, and London is increasingly becoming a place where tourists browse but spend elsewhere. Meanwhile, promotional budgets have been cut significantly, weakening tourism campaigns. When tourism weakens, even domestic travel declines. Since 2022, millions of domestic holiday nights have been lost, and spending on domestic tourism has dropped by billions. Coastal communities are suffering as foreign holidays become cheaper than local travel. International flights are often tax-advantaged, while domestic tourism bears heavier taxation, effectively encouraging spending abroad. Travel is becoming a luxury for the wealthy, while working-class holidays are disappearing. London itself is becoming increasingly expensive, with hotel prices, food, and transport costs significantly higher than competing cities like Paris. As a result, tourists are shifting toward destinations like Tokyo, Rio, and Seville. Independent shops are being replaced by luxury chains, and the city risks becoming a playground for the ultra-wealthy. At the same time, border policies have become more complex. New travel authorization systems and fees have created barriers for visitors. Even dual nationals and families face complications and costs that discourage travel. Hotels are also suffering, with declining occupancy rates and rising costs. Budget hotels are especially under pressure, while luxury hotels remain stable. The hospitality workforce has also been affected by reduced immigration, lowering service quality and increasing operational strain. Coastal and suburban tourism areas are in decline, and entire local economies are being affected. Even famous streets risk becoming empty showrooms, and tourism is increasingly seen as a burden rather than an asset. The 2026 crisis is not a natural disaster but a man-made one shaped by policy decisions and economic choices. When you close off a country with tax and bureaucratic barriers, the world simply goes elsewhere. A nation that was once globally connected is now retreating, trading prosperity for control. If these trends continue, will future generations only read about the Great British Holiday in history books? Are we witnessing the end of a tourism era, or a wake-up call for change? England is still beautiful, but that beauty means little if it is no longer accessible to everyone.